Welcome to the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. I'm Amanda Wares, your host, and I have with me today our co-host, Melanie Willis.
Hi.
Hey, Melanie.
It's good to see you today.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Me too. The sun is shining right now as we're recording. It's beautiful, so always a good thing.
Yes. Yes.
All right. What do we have today?
So last week we had an interview with Christy Faith and we showed the first half of that. And so today we're going to show the second half, which I think is even better. I don't know how it can get better. She has so much wonderful stuff to say. And so we're going to listen to that. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about Thrive and getting in free or at discounted rates to Thrive, and a little bit more about field trips that we can take.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's check out this video. All right. Welcome to the Homeschool Show. I'm Amanda Wares, your host, and I have with me today a very special guest. I am so excited because I have Christy Faith with me. She is one of our featured speakers at Thrive 2025, and we are thrilled to have her and to be able to talk to her today. Hey, Christy.
Hello. Thanks for having me on. I'm thrilled to be here with you today, and I can't wait to see what we're going to talk about.
I know. I'm so excited. So first of all, please introduce yourself. If there are people out there in podcast land or on YouTube that have never heard of you, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Christy Faith. I am an author, speaker, podcaster in the homeschool space. And my background is funny thing, because I know we might talk about social media on the show today, but I started out as a TikToker. I got mad about something one day several years ago, and my very first TikTok video went viral. It was kind of a nutso experience. And, but the thing is I have been in education for over 20 years. For a long time, my husband and I ran a boutique learning center and consulting firm in the Pacific Palisades of California. We are now in Denver, though. We have been here for a little over 8 years. And I spent my entire career when we were running the center. I started out as a classroom teacher, teaching kids, advising parents. I taught all of my teachers and tutors, supporting parents, teachers, and administrators at our center. We did everything there. We were a boutique learning center where we did college counseling. We did test prep, SAT, ACT. We did college counseling. We did remediations there. So I spent a lot of my days reading kiddos' IEPs on the phone with educational psychologists, principals, special ed teachers. Sometimes I would go to those IEP meetings with the parents as an advocate for the child when a mom felt overwhelmed. So we have been in the educational game for many, many years. And when I had my first child, I stepped away from the center. My husband ran it after that, and we started having our kids. And when it was time to think about homeschooling, our oldest, we had, of course, the option of homeschool, public school, private school at the time in Los Angeles. And my heart was just tugging me towards homeschooling. We did run a homeschool pod out of our center, but it was more for child actors and youth athletes. It wasn't a philosophical, like when we think of homeschooling, like I'm a Charlotte Mason homeschooler or I'm a classical homeschooler. It wasn't that at all. It was like we hired credentialed teachers to get in, get out, get that kid to the audition. Or we had a pre-pro surfer and she would have to leave and go across the globe for like 2 months on, at one time. And so there was no way these kids could be enrolled in traditional schools. They would be truant. And so that was kind of what we ran. So I often say I was homeschooling other people's kids before my own. But I will say that we did have kind of an awakening as we were starting to have our own family and watching the education play out. Through the years, we were a very tight-knit, close community. So a lot of the kiddos that we helped, we were in their lives for years. We just really were not impressed watching these hundreds and hundreds of kids go through our center and what their education looked like. And it got me curious as to, is there anything else out there? And it wasn't until I was in the education game for all those years that I even realized there were other pedagogies like Charlotte Mason, classical, unit studies, interest led. And when I went to my first homeschool conference, which is why I'm so excited to be coming to the Thrive conference, because my first conference experience was transformative for me. It was the first time I ever heard the term living book. And I was like, what? You don't need a textbook to teach history? And I was just, I mean, my mind was blown. And really the rest was history. I came back from that conference and I was, just talking Scott's ear off. Oh my goodness. And I saw this person and I saw this person. So the fact that I get to go to conferences now and help and be on Team Homeschool, on Team North Carolina, to encourage moms, equip moms, and inspire moms, it's kind of a full circle moment for me. And I absolutely love that I was invited to come to your conference and I get to pour into your mamas there.
So you talked about you have experience in public, private education and homeschool, all of them. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing homeschoolers today?
The first, I think it's really hard for homeschooling families when we decide to take that plunge. We're basically signing up for a life of being misunderstood. And I don't think that when women embrace this for their families, they realize the extent of that, because it's truly a lifestyle choice that encompasses every aspect of, it's to the point you don't even do extracurriculars like other people do because your priorities are different. The education often doesn't look the same either. And so that's one thing that I see a lot of women struggling with, not only just being misunderstood by society, but even people in their own families and handling the naysayers and the comments because their kids are learning different things than kids in the public school system. I love this quote by Alan Bloom. He's a sociologist. He's not around anymore, but he was a really cool thought leader in terms of education. And he quoted, I can read this quote. He said, fathers and mothers have lost the idea that the highest aspiration they might have for their children is for them to be wise, as priests, prophets, and philosophers are wise. Specialized competence and success are all they can imagine. And I use that quote a lot because honestly, I can't say it better. It's at the heart of what we're doing here. Somewhere along the way, well, it happened in Prussia right after World War I, but along the way, we've lost the purpose of an education, which is to impart on our kids the value of wisdom, character, and just the flourishing of the human spirit. And also, if you're a Christian, which I am, the relationship with the Lord, which is their sustaining rock. Yeah. And so we've just really separated all of this and we've kind of boiled education down to vocation training and all these things that are measurable, when the reality is when you are giving your kids a true education, that's really hard to measure. Right? It's really hard to measure character and integrity and emotional intelligence and all those things that we value. And we look at our kids and we're going, wow, they're growing up to be the coolest kid. And then you go to the grandmother's house for Thanksgiving and they're being quizzed on their timetables and you're like, we don't care. Right. And so, not saying that we don't care about the academics, but our priorities are just really different. And I think it can be really hard for homeschooling families. And, I deal with a lot of brand new homeschooling moms in my community. And that's how a lot of moms hear about me is they're homeschool curious and they download my How to Homeschool guide. And one thing that I have to walk a lot of moms through in those first couple of years is that their expectations are not the reality, because their exposure to what homeschooling looks like is on social media. And we all know, like, oh yeah, comparison is a thief of joy. Like, we hear all those platitudes, but what that actually looks like is really interesting as it is playing out, because a lot of moms begin homeschooling and it's like a screeching halt. Like, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And it can be a letdown. And so that we do a lot of expectation handling in the Thrive Homeschool community when I'm coaching the moms. And also we do a ton of parent coaching, because you really can't separate parenting from homeschooling. You really can't.
Yes, I love that. That's really good. So I also wanted to ask you about conferences. You also talked a little bit about this already, but I too, I went to my first conference and it was transformational. You used that word and it truly was. And then the next year, my husband, who had been kind of anti-homeschooling, not kind of, he was anti-homeschooling. He came to the conference and it really did change him as well, changed his mind, his perspective on homeschooling altogether. So what would you say if, to our watchers and listeners out there, maybe they're on the fence, they're thinking, I don't know if I should come to the conference. What would you say to them?
Well, it's like it's the difference between listening to your favorite song on the radio and then going to a live concert and listening to your favorite song being performed live with a crowd there and the energy and the bustling and the camaraderie of you're all loving the same thing. That's the only I've tried to rack my brain to try to explain why it's so different, and I do the webinars and I wrote a book, and those things are great too, but there is something about being together in a large group with other like-minded people, everyone hungry to learn, right? When you go to a conference, you're a growth mindset girly, like you're there to grow and to be surrounded by other women there. And especially the talks that I like to give are very problem solving. I just made up that word, but I really like to help with the nitty gritty every day of like, look, your kid is trouble. Let's help. Let's make your days run more smoothly. And actually I was looking at some of maybe we should talk about a couple of the talks that I'm giving at Thrive. I printed them out here. I went to the website. I forgot what you guys had me. I was like, okay, what am I doing there? But
great.
The one that I'm really excited about is the one about balancing everything, like how to give your kids everything they need. Because we really want to give them a great education, right? How do we do that without overwhelming them, us, complete burnout, raising the other kids, all of that. And so that's a really cool one because I spend half my time asking the question, okay, well, what do they really need then? Right? Because again, back to that shiny object syndrome is everything looks great. And all of a sudden we're doing the composer study and the poetry study and the this and the memory work. And we're, it's 6 p.m. right. With our 5-year-old. And so, and I was that mom, that's how I started out. And so I think asking ourselves, we want to give our kids everything they need, but what is that exactly? And we actually do know, we actually have. And so I give that list of this is what kids actually need. So yes, do these things. These are really important. And then let's talk about how the tips, tricks, and hacks and how to get through that. And also I noticed that I'm signed up for the Homeschool 101. I love giving my Homeschool 101. So if you're a mama listening and you have a friend who's homeschool curious, bring her along with you and sit right next to her in there and say, I brought my friend, like you said on the podcast, because that's a really, I love giving that workshop because it's the possibilities of what these moms don't even realize their lives can look like. It's so cool to kind of lay that out on a table for them as a feast to just realize and conceptualize. And then also, if you're struggling right now with resistant kids, pushback, battles, lack of motivation, that is something that I love speaking on. If there's one thing we spend most of our coaching calls on in Thrive Homeschool Community, it's on behavior and moms not knowing what to do with behavior. Because we're kind of in this in-between stage right now with parenting where we realize that the authoritarianism that we were raised in doesn't work. Right? We don't want to, we didn't like our experience. Most of us were probably raised with either a permissive parenting or authoritarian. Those were kind of the options. But we're swinging the pendulum over and we're like, wait a minute, but gentle parenting that doesn't seem right. Like, does that align with scripture? No, not really. And so we're feeling a little lost. And so that's where we really get to the bottom of, and sometimes when we go over here, that it's struggles all day. It's negotiating with our kids all day. And I don't want anyone to be living in that space where all day long, it's like the nagging. Mom, what are we doing today? And then you say it and they're like, no. And then you get the pushback. So there's that. And I'm giving other talks. You can go on the North Carolina website and check out the talks that I'm giving and see if one of those or several of them is a fit for you. But I cannot wait to come and to pour into your mamas. And I've heard this will be my first time at your conference, and I've heard it's absolutely amazing that you guys do a fantastic job.
Well, we are so excited. We can't wait. And we really do love it. Our conference is run by our board, which are almost 100% volunteers. And it really is just a labor of love. We love it. We do it because we love homeschooling. We love homeschool families. And we want to help them thrive. Okay, that was so much fun. It was really super fun to interview Christy and talk to her. She has so much energy, like we mentioned last time, and just such a passion for homeschooling and the homeschool community. And it really comes through in everything that she has to say. And I love that.
Right. And it's honestly, as a homeschool mom, the first time that I started listening to her, I was kind of like, well, I won't be able to identify with her because she has all this public school stuff and she's just so well educated, and I felt like I'm not going to measure up and this isn't going to speak to me. But as we've listened to her, and it's like, this is all the same stuff that I've thought about. It's all the things that my husband and I have talked about. And it's so relevant. And I'm like, God has blessed her with that ability to really get in touch with the homeschool community, and especially moms being homeschool parents. And I think that she just has so much to offer. It's going to be wonderful to hear her at Thrive. Really look forward to that.
I know. I'm so excited.
Like, I loved y'all had the discussion about the benefits of homeschooling. And during that, you talked about emotional intelligence. And that's something that we have talked a lot about here in our home. And we actually read a book many years ago called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And I think God kind of gave that to us because, we have a lot of kids, and we have, unfortunately, although I don't know how out of the norm, we've had a lot of problems, I guess, so to speak, in our life. We've had a lot of bumps in the road. And that emotional intelligence part has been something we've really leaned on, in the fact that we know as a homeschooling family, that we are really focusing more on the things that our children are learning, and the fact that they get to spend more time with us and see us be examples, and it not being so much about, that they're going to grow up to be doctors and lawyers, that we're teaching them about how to live life, and have ultimately had to say, if we can teach them how to be successful in living life and being successful adults, and we've taught them how to live in relationship with God, then I'm happy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important. And I think, I feel like I say this a lot, you say this a lot, we say it a lot on the board of NCHE, but hearing it from experts, hearing it from people that have written books and are kind of known outside of our little circle is so important when they're saying those same things that we kind of are saying all the time. I think it's so important. I just saw a graphic from Robert Bortons, who is the head of Classical Conversations. And he said that homeschoolers get 100, I think I'm getting this right, 160,000 more hours with our kids than if they were in school, from K through 12, that many hours a day. And truly, there is no substitute for that gift of time and being able to work through those hard things as they come up, being able to, go through that as a family and really work through it as a family. There's just no substitute for it. It's so important.
Not at all. And if you even looked at a child's life and just for some reason things go crazy smooth and your family's just wonderful, would you want to give up all those hours with your children anyway. I just can't see losing 9 hours a day away from my children. And because, as I already know, I have so many that have already grown up and moved out, and that time is over. You can never get it back. It's
true.
Gone. And
it's so true.
I think that kind of lends itself. You guys had a discussion about social media, and that's one of the other things, is how much the devices take us away from our families to start with. And
yes.
I loved everything that she discussed. She just has all of that wisdom and the knowledge that has been learned about the effects of social media. And we all need to take a lesson from that.
Absolutely. It's so true. And it's so hard. It's such a hard issue, I think, in this day and age, in this society. I've been talking with my older kids, even about my youngest, that he has grown up. He has not been alive in a world without social media and without smartphones.
Yeah.
Like when the smartphone came out, he was a baby. And so he knew at 1 year old how to open the screen, and it's really interesting to try and navigate that as a parent of a teenager. And how does he connect with other kids?
Right.
How does he connect with other people? How do I connect with other people? It's so challenging.
Very.
And I think it's worth thinking about and talking about and continuing to have those conversations. And so I was really, it was really good to talk to her about that too. And I love that even though she does have a online community called Thrive,
Right.
not to be confused with our Thrive conference, but within that online community, she's really careful to make those connections, it's not just, beyond the surface, right. I guess. So I think that's really cool.
Right. Definitely. And I kind of wanted to mention, she had a quote that said that we are redeeming our children's childhoods. And I think that just everything you guys talked about lent itself to thinking about that thought. And so that was really the last thought about her I wanted to leave everybody with, was what are we doing to redeem these childhoods? And because I think it's so important.
That's so good. That is so good. So everybody out there that you're watching or listening to this, I hope that it makes you want to come to Thrive and hear Christy and all that she has to share with us. It sure, made me even more excited to hear her in person. So make sure that you go ahead and register. So we have passed the early bird registration period, but now we still have a discount from what you would pay if you just came on site and registered at the conference, which you can do. You are welcome to do it. We love to have you come in. But from now until the week before the conference is the regular registration period. So please make sure you register. We want you there.
So while we're talking about that, as we move into our homeschool news for this week, that first subject is actually Thrive. And I know you and I spoke before, and we wanted to get into a little bit more detail about being able to get a discounted registration or free registration, because there are certain categories where you can get that. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So parents of preschoolers, we've talked about this before. So parents of preschoolers, if your oldest child is not yet 5 and you have not been to our conference before, you can come. We invite you to come for free. You do have to get that particular free registration, you do have to pre-register. You cannot get that on site. So make sure, if you're a parent of a preschooler, that you go ahead and register for that. Also, grandparents, we love our grandparents. Grandparents can always come with their families for free. They will be included on your registration. So if you have a wonderful grandparent that wants to come with you and support you in your homeschooling, which that is so amazing when they do that, please include them on your registration. Also, single parents. We love our single parent warrior homeschoolers. I think they are just the heroes of the homeschool community. And because they are heroes to us, we want to support them in any way we can. And so we do have a scholarship for single parents to register for the conference. You just register. There is a little referral for that. And yeah, it's just that simple. New this year, pastors who are not homeschooling their kids and their spouse are welcome to come register for the conference. We have a special registration form just for pastors. So those of you out there, if you're listening to this and you have a pastor at your church that would love to come, we want them there. We want them to come and just check it out, see what this homeschooling community is all about, and learn more how they can support the homeschool families in their faith community.
I know a lot of groups. A lot of groups meet in churches. And so this is a great opportunity for them to invite the pastors. And, if they're on board and they're seeing exactly what's going on, how much better that relationship would be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so can you tell us about volunteering for Thrive?
Oh, yes. So important. So I know we've mentioned this quite a few times, but NCHE is itself largely a volunteer-run organization. We have very few paid staff in our organization. Almost all of us are volunteers, and we are the ones that run this very large conference. And we can't do it alone. We need other volunteers. So if you come, and this is a great way, if you think, you look at the price of registration and that is prohibitive for you, come and volunteer and you can get a registration for free by doing that. I think I'm not going to get the number right, but you have to volunteer a certain number of hours over the weekend. And all that information is available at nche.com/thrive. Click on registration and scroll down, and there is all those details and links of how to register, what you need to do to get those volunteer hours or single parent registration, pastor, all those things.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. And so we want to talk, we have Capital Fest coming up on April the 2nd, and that registration is now available online. You go under events and Capital Fest, and that's going to be for homeschoolers can come in. There's lots of different stuff going on that day. They can meet their legislators. They can attend special workshops. You can sign up to get lunch during the workshops. Go to the website and check out all of that stuff. And we will put the link underneath the video and the notes for all of these things, so you can always check out those links. And lastly, there is a field trip to the North Carolina Transportation Museum on April 25th, and that registration is up right now also.
Awesome. So much fun things, so many fun things going on. That's so awesome. All right. I think that's all we have for you today. So as always, we want to hear from you. If you have any suggestions for things we could include in the show, if you have any questions or comments, feedback, please contact us. You can always reach us at thehomeschoolshow@nche.com. As always, like, subscribe, share with your friends. We want to be a blessing to the homeschool community. So please pass on this show, pass on the link, share it with anybody you can. And as always, continue to homeschool with confidence and joy.